Imagine this. Your child has told you a story about something that they claimed happened to them. A story so creepy and so disturbing, yet so detailed and intriguing that you can't just pass it off as the workings of a child's imagination. Now, what if their story reminded you of your own strange experiences? What would you do? I'm Heidi from the Obsession podcast, where we get horribly obsessed with weird things. And as usual, I'm going to do an illustration of the story. Feel free to join in as we talk about the Sandown Ghost Clown. Now, please put your theories in the comments. I'm desperate to know what you think. So, let's go back to 1973. We're in Britain, specifically the seaside town of Sandown on the Isle of Wight. It's a Tuesday afternoon in May, and two 7-year-old children are playing around the outskirts of the town near the golf course. Both children have retained their anonymity, and while the girl has only ever been referred to by the pseudonym of Faye, the boy has never been named at all. It was around 4 p.m. and Faye and her friend heard a strange wailing sound that was somewhat similar to the siren of an ambulance. They were eager to see what was making the noise, and they sprinted through the golf course and to an area outside of the Sandown airport. The noise stopped, but the two children kept searching for whatever it was that had made the weird sound. They started crossing a little footbridge when something happened that would have put most people in mind of a horror story or the scariest part of a Grimm's Brothers fairy tale. A hand in a blue glove reached out from under the bridge. Now, many of us would probably have run away screaming at this point, but not Faye and her unnamed friend. They stayed standing on the bridge to see a tall, lanky figure emerge from under the bridge holding a book in a gloved hand. The figure dropped the book in the water and then awkwardly splashed around to retrieve it. The children watched as the figure walked over to a windowless metallic hut, moving with a high-kneed hopping motion. The figure disappeared into the hut, and the two children, who were incredibly curious and incredibly brave, hung around the area waiting to see what would happen next. The figure came out of his metallic hut with a microphone and a small speaker. The siren sound started up again, and the boy started running back towards the bridge. The siren stopped immediately, as though the figure was aware that he'd frightened the boy and wanted to stop him from running away. The figure started to speak into the microphone, and his voice sounded friendly. He asked, "Hello, are you still there?" Deciding that he wasn't dangerous, the children came closer. Now, I'll use the description that was recorded in the Bufora Journal in 1978, Bufora being the British UFO Research Association. This description was given to Bufora either by Faye, but most likely by her father. So, I quote, "He was nearly 7 feet tall and had no neck, for his head appeared to be wedged straight onto his shoulders. He wore a yellow pointed hat which interlocked with a red collar of a green tunic. A round black knob was attached to the top of his hat, and wooden antennae were attached to either side. The face had triangular markings for eyes, a brown square of a nose, and motionless yellow lips. Other round markings were on his paper white cheeks, and a fringe of red hair fell onto his forehead. Wooden slats protruded from his sleeves and from below his white trousers. Faye also mentions that he had 3 fingers on each hand and was barefoot, with 3 toes on each white foot. When he spoke, his mouth did not move and his words were slightly muffled. He had a notebook and a pencil, and he wrote down a series of words all out of order. He then pointed out the order of these words, making the phrase, "Hello, and I am all colours Sam." Now, there's been much controversy over whether he meant that his name was All Colours Sam, or if he meant I am all colours apostrophe Sam, as if maybe he thought one of the children was called Sam, but let's call him Sam anyway. So they asked why he was wearing a ripped tunic and trousers, and he told them that they were the only clothes he owned. They asked him if he was human, and he replied no. Then they asked if he were a ghost, and Sam gave the enigmatic answer of, "Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way." When the children flat out asked him what he was, he gave the frustrating and slightly chilling answer of, "You know." He told them that he had no name, which adds to the confusion of the All Colours Sam introduction, and that there were others of his kind on the mainland, only they were scared of humans and would not fight back, even if they were attacked. He drew a sketch in his notebook of what another like him might look like and showed it to the children. Well, Faye and her friend must have thought that he had good enough vibes, because they accepted his invitation into his metallic hut and crawled in through a small flap. Yes, I am aware that any parent listening is now quaking in horror, but I will assure you that both kids ended up okay, trust me. The hut apparently had 2 levels, and the wallpaper was blue-green with a pattern of dials. So there wasn't actually any dials on the wall. That was the pattern on the wallpaper, which is kind of cool. I bet there's something like that on Etsy. So the furniture was white and made of wood, and there was an electric heater. Sam took his pointed hat off his head, and the children could see that he had round white ears and sparse amounts of brown hair. Now, this is the most frustrating part of the story. Faye claims that they had a conversation with Sam that lasted around half an hour, but the article in the Before It journal gives almost nothing of this conversation. The only part of the conversation that we know of was when Sam told the children that he gathered berries for his meals and cleaned the water from the river so it was safe to drink. And I'll read again from the Before article, which gives an account of how Sam ate his berries. Before eating a berry, he performed an odd conjuring trick. He placed the berry in his ear, thrust his head forward, caused the berry to disappear and reappear at one of his odd eyes. Repeating the process, the berry travelled to his mouth. So, Faye and her friends say goodbye to Sam and go back over the footbridge and across the golf course. Faye claims that they told the first man they saw that they had seen a ghost, but he ignored them. Another detail that Faye remembered was that there had been workmen nearby when they were talking to Sam, but neither of these workmen had given any indication of noticing them or of having heard the siren noises. 3 weeks after this incident, Faye told her father about her strange adventure. Her father, known as Mr. Y in the journal article, did what parents normally do in these situations and decided that either his daughter had a wild imagination or a near brush with a predator in a colourful costume. He questioned the boy about the situation, and the boy gave him an account that was alarmingly similar to Faye's. He visited the area of the encounter and could not find the metal shed nor any sign of the mysterious Sam. Ultimately, Mr. Y did take his daughter's story seriously, mainly because she was not the only one who'd seen bizarre things around the Isle of Wight. He too had had experiences that he couldn't explain. So let's rewind back even further to 1970. Mr. Y was on his way to visit a friend, and he was driving towards St. Helens on the Isle of Wight. As he was passing through the village of Brading, Mr. Y apparently saw an aircraft made up of red, yellow, and turquoise lights that flew low to the ground, then started following his car. At some point, Mr. Y stopped his car, got out, and signaled to the flying craft with his flashlight. He felt that the craft was playing a game with him and his flashlight, and when he got back in his car to finish the drive, the UFO continued to follow him. The friend that he was visiting was also able to see the UFO, and together they watched as the lights appeared and disappeared through the trees, again like playing a game of hide and seek. Then, 2 years after this encounter, March the 1st, 1972, around 9 or 10 a.m., Mr. Y was driving through Compton Bay when he noticed a sudden tidal surge, something that he apparently felt was caused by what he described as a droning underwater craft. He got out of his car and walked to the cliff, which he thought might be a safe place. From that vantage point, he saw 2 enormous yellow lights just under the surface of the water, and to him they looked like the eyes of some horrible sea monster. The lights disappeared, the tide receded, and Mr. Y got back into his car and drove home. It was these experiences, coupled with his daughter's story, that made Mr. Y get in contact with the British Unidentified Flying Object Research Association, as he thought that there was a chance it could all be connected. Every person in these stories has remained anonymous, and there have been no sightings of All Colours Sam or anything like him since. Now, there are, of course, many theories about this story, both paranormal and non-paranormal. The first non-paranormal theory is that Faye and her friends made everything up, maybe as a prank, or maybe they were so intensely immersed in a game of pretend that they convinced themselves that it had been real. And if that's the case, I have complete respect for their brilliant imaginations, and I hope that they've remained creative people throughout their lives. The other non-paranormal explanation, and probably the most horrible, is that Sam was a completely human predator. The sort that lures children into their orbit with magic tricks, stories, and maybe even a clown costume. And I will add here, though, that Faye never called Sam a clown or mentioned anything at all about him looking like a clown. It was the Before a Journal article that called him that. Maybe because clown and Sandown rhyme and it has a nice ring to it. When this event allegedly occurred in 1973, Stephen King had not yet published it, and the idea of an evil predatory clown was not yet in the collective consciousness. And it's also possible that a human Sam was nothing more than a harmless eccentric, perhaps a man living on the fringes of society with mental health issues. The paranormal theories have, of course, included the possibility of Sam being an alien, a cryptid, or even a multi-dimensional traveller. There's also the theory that, seeing that the Isle of Wight, like most of Britain, has areas steeped in fairy folklore and countless tales of fairy sightings, that Sam might be one of the Fae. And by Fae, I mean F-E-Y, as in one of the fairy folk. So the fairies of the British Isles and the Celtic countries are not all tiny with wings. Some are very large, some are very strange, some even grotesque. The only thing is, unlike Sam, who was frightened of humans, the fairies of Britain and the Celtic regions are known for being very dangerous to humans, and they're not frightened of very much at all, especially not frightened of us. Although fairies do historically prefer to show themselves to children and make themselves invisible to adults, and so that kind of matches up to the details. Other people have drawn comparisons with the story of the Pied Piper, like the colourful tunic and the sounds that make children want to follow. There's also the details about Mr. Y's experiences. It's not unusual for people from the same family to claim that they've had paranormal experiences, something that could be a whole episode in itself. So whatever or whoever he was, Sam the Sandown Clown has become part of modern folklore of the Isle of Wight. In 2024, a statue of Sam was unveiled outside the Sandown Airport, commemorating a mystery that has captured the imaginations of conspiracy theorists everywhere. So in the end, I don't think it matters whether or not Sam existed. What does now exist is a story that has taken roots in people's minds and can be added to by other people in the way of all folk tales, fairy tales, and urban legends. And that in itself is pretty special. So I will definitely finish this drawing and I'll show it to you at the end of the video. I'm so intrigued to know what you think and to know your theories. Who or what was Sam the Sandown Clown? Did he exist at all? I will see you later on. Stay magical, stay safe, and goodbye.